and this is part 2 of the values, the two-parter videos that I'm going to do. I really wanted to do a second part. My first part that I did, that depending on when I upload this, was either last week or the week before. It was more beginning to think about, I was just starting to think about this as a subject. I've been thinking about it in my kind of quiet time. I've been thinking about it in my own time. And I often think about my priorities in life, but I hadn't spent a lot of time thinking about my values, but it's something that's been weighing on my mind for a while now. And so the first part of my video, like the part 1, was more of a whispered ramble. It was an unstructured, just me sort of thinking out loud, exploring the subject. And in that video I came up with this sort of idea of what my values are and what my thoughts are. Since doing that video, which was quite, as I said, it was just me thinking out loud and me just sort of thinking about it just in my own head, I have since gone and looked online. I've done some research. I've looked more into this whole topic and how to do it properly, and I've gone through and done an exercise which I'm going to work through with you guys, that's far more structured. So this video is going to be more structured of how to actually go through this process better than how I did it in the last video, where I was muddling through and, I said, just rambling and thinking out loud. And so yeah, part 1, unstructured, just me on my own doing it. This part 2 is after having done a bit of research. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tear this page off. I'm going to keep a hold of it because it's quite interesting. I was actually pretty close. But one thing I was mentioning in part 1 was that there were some things on here that I wasn't sure if they were values, and they weren't. So for example, to keep a clean and tidy house itself isn't a value, but I was able to identify the value behind that. Yeah, so it's kind of I thought there might have been another step there that I was missing. So I have some notes over to the side here, and I'm gonna kind of write things out so that you can see the thought process and the process that I went through, that I followed from a couple of websites. So this is values part 2. And this is where I'm hoping you can see it clearly enough. So there was 2 websites. Basically, I would like to start this by saying I just did a simple Google search. I clicked on some links that came up. I'm not in any way sponsored or supported or in any way affiliated with the websites I'm going to link to in the description. It's just 2 that I found useful. There is tons of them up there, and to be honest, they all seem to follow the same sort of structure. I just found these 2 websites particularly useful. I liked the way they presented the material, or how they laid it out. So they're the 2 that I kind of ran through. I went through the process from one website, and then I kind of read through another website as a backup, just to see if there's anything else that it brought to mind, if there was anything else that kind of jogged my mind that I was oh, actually, yeah, that applies. So the people who wrote those websites have no idea I'm linking to them, but as I said in the description, I will reference 2 websites that I found on a simple Google search. And I'm going to go through the process step by step. So the 2 websites. The first one, if I can find it, I made a note of it. It was scottjeffrey.com. Now, I said I cannot at all comment on the content on the rest of his website. I just found this particular, and then it was the personal core values. And I will put a link to that in my in the description. This one I found good because he had a nice systematic step-by-step guide on how to go through the process, and then he had there was a link from this page to a page of 230 different values. Now he recommends you don't start by looking at a list of values. You start thinking separately first, but I find it useful to do the thinking exercise that he suggests, and then I went and skimmed through the list of core values to see if there was anything else that jump out at me, or that maybe better described what I was trying to select or whatever. So I got that list from his website. Now I've printed it off and we'll be looking at it in this video. And then the other website that I used as a backup just to see if there was anything else that I kind of missed. I'm not going to write it out because it's quite a long address, but again I'll link it in the description. It was business.plus, or however you pronounce it, .com. And I found they had a tutorial on what are personal values, and I found that really good because it gave some more examples, and it gave more questions to ask yourself to kind of jog the thought process, and I found that really useful to kind of visualise what they're after. So I found them quite useful from that perspective. It gave you I felt better examples and better questions to ask yourself to jog the thought process. So thing number one, kind of what are values and why are they important? So what are values and why are they important? Let me try and find. I had some definitions written down which I felt were quite good. So this is just some sentences I wrote down from the two different websites. So one of them was talking about values are who we are, what we stand for. They guide our behaviour, or they should, and they provide us with a personal code of conduct. When we don't honour our values, we're more likely to escape into bad habits and regress into childish behaviour to uplift ourselves. Now that really resonated with me. Too often external sources dictate our values. So we get greater fulfilment when we live by our values, and we suffer when we don't honour our values. And then on the other website, when you live by your values, you feel better about yourself and are more focused on doing the things that are important to you. Personal values are the things that are important to us, the characteristics and behaviours that motivate us and guide our decisions. And that really resonated with me. That's kind of why I started thinking about values in the first place, was that it kind of came to my attention probably about a year ago or so, maybe even longer, but it's been kind of low level niggling at the back of my mind that the life that I used to live did not tie up with the values that I claimed to profess. basically I was trying to force myself to live in a lifestyle that was not like fitting who I was. I wasn't honouring who I was. So this is where I'm going to put a caveat in. Now, I am a Christian, and that does obviously mould and shape a lot of my views and opinions about the world, and how I see things. But hopefully the opinion I'm about to express is one that even people with no faith can still understand, and it's not alien. And I believe that we are each created as individual people who are unique and different for a reason, because we've all been created for a different purpose. We need a world full of different people who like do different things to make the world work. We need our creative types, we need our worker bees, we need our leaders, we need all these different types of people who bring different values and who bring different characteristics and who bring different qualities. And I believe each one of us has a place, and each one of us has been created to be unique. And when we try and force ourselves into a shape that's not what we're meant to be, we end up in discord and we end up miserable, basically. That's when we get stressed and we get mental health problems, and it's not that there's anything wrong with us, it's that the way we're trying to function is wrong. I mean, this was touched on in one of my corporate personal development sessions when I was at work, and it really resonated with me about the different personality types. You know, you do your Myers-Briggs, you've got your different personality types, and you can do a job well that's not suited to your personality type, but it will be at a cost. If you try and force yourself into a job that is not in keeping with your personality type, in time it will take a toll, and it will either affect your job or it will affect somewhere else in your life. So whether it's your home life or somewhere else, the effects of forcing yourself to be somebody you're not for too long will take a toll on you. So that's kind of my opinion. Put that out there at the start. Some people might disagree with that, but so for me, I really felt that my old life did not fit my values, and there was a real disconnect. And I have now built a new life for myself, but I'm still figuring it out. I'm still at the building stages. I'm still laying the foundations, figuring out what it's going to look like, how I'm going to function, and what's important to me, and I'm still figuring this out. And so it seemed like a sensible thing to do this step. Now, to give some background context so you know where I'm coming from. I'm referring to my old life. So I used to live in England. I was living a very middle class life. I was a chartered chemical engineer. I was a young professional living on my own. I was working full time for a big organisation in a high stress job, and kind of coming home at night exhausted. I've also got a chronic illness, which is worth mentioning because that does obviously have a bearing. So obviously that's an ongoing battle, and I've had mental health problems, as I mentioned. So like, my career was basically my life. I put all of my time and energy into work, and in the evenings and weekends I was usually knackered and playing catch up. So my house was a mess. I didn't look after myself as well as I could have. I ate rubbish. I didn't exercise as much as I wanted to. But I was also doing other things, like I was involved in the church, and for a while I volunteered at the local youth club, and I worked weekends at a local cattery, and there was like so many things going on in my life. So I was busy all the time. I have now moved to the Shetland Islands. I have gone from working full time in a high stress job that I now have 2 small part-time jobs where I do a maximum of 25 hours a week. a small farm, and so like the farming calendar is like dictates my life now. Working with sheep and hay and cutting beets and that kind of thing. And I'm now married, so I'm in a relationship, and so kind of looking after my husband is part of my life now, and or just being part of a team, working together as part of a team, rather than having to do everything by myself. Like, for example, I got this morning, I had a lie-in and I got up to find he'd wash the dishes. I love him. Wonderful. So yes, I'm now married, I've got a baby on the way, so my life is going to change very drastically. I'm also doing a distance learning accountancy course, and the plan is that hopefully within a year I will have my own self-employed accountancy business set up, and I'll be working from home with like balancing a job, family and the farm. So my life now is quite different to what it was before. It's been over a year now since I moved home, and I've been struggling to adjust to that change. I'm going to do a separate video talking about the things I've learned just about myself in making that switch, and the things I've learned during lockdown. But anyway, I am going off topic, and this is going to end up being a really long video if I don't shut up and get on with it. Well, not shut up because I need to do the video. So that's kind of what are values and why are they important, and I've given a bit of context to why I'm doing this at this stage of my life. As I'm building a new life here, I wanted to stop and think, well, what actually is important to me? Let's build a life around those things. Because I realised in the past, I had let society dictate to me that it's important that you go to university, it's important that you get an education, it's important you get a career, it's important you earn lots of money and have the nice house and blah 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 blah. And actually, what is important to me? So that's what set me on the journey of looking at values, and that's where I'm at. So, how do you identify? So we've spoken about that, so number 2. How do you identify your personal values? And I apologise because my handwriting is not particularly amazing. So, basically, all the different websites that I looked at, it's a very similar approach that they take. They don't actually suggest you looking at a long list to start with. What they suggest you do is you start by stopping and thinking about your life, going backwards. My husband's just about to come in the door, so I'm going to stop and I'm going to go say hi to him. Okay, so my husband is going out to work with a tractor, so I've got peace and quiet to carry on. He just been to the shop and bought some more milk and stuff. So what I was talking about is, I said they don't recommend that you spend a lot of time looking at a big long list of values to start with. You look back at your life and think about the highs and about the lows. They suggest that you think about what were your peak experiences, when were you happiest, and kind of what were you doing, and try and think about what values were you honouring at that time. And then they also encourage you to think about like the negative, the lows. When did you feel discouraged? When did you feel angry? When did you feel just negative? And think about what was going on at that time, and try and identify what values were being suppressed at that time. What was important to you that wasn't being met? this is where the second website I felt had some better prompts. The first website just kind of says think about the highs and lows and kind of leaves it at that. Whereas the second website, it talked about what makes you feel good about yourself, what makes you feel bad about yourself. And it's like, what makes you feel like a fraud? Like if there's things that have happened that have left you feeling disappointed in yourself or feeling like a fraud, it probably implies that you've not been living according to your values. And they've got like a bunch of questions. So what's important to you in life? If you could have any career without worrying about money or other constraints, what would you do? And then they were like, when you're thinking about when you're reading the news and things like that, what stories and behaviours that you read about inspire you? Or what stories and behaviours that you read about anger you? And think about, what are your triggers? What do you want to change about the world or yourself? And what are you most proud of? And when were you the happiest? And so, using these kind of thoughts and ways of thinking, as I said, I already have been through this process and I sat and wrote down lots of notes and stuff. So for me, the first step, so how do you identify your personal values? Ask questions, ask yourself questions. And it's kind of like a brainstorming exercise. And write a list. So you note down everything you can think of at this point. Everything. Even if it ends up being a long list at this point, that's fine. You come back to it later and trim it down to a few. So, for me, going through this exercise, when I had to think about, let me find the right page. When I had to think about, I'm just going to move a post-it. When I started thinking about the things that mattered to me, so when I was thinking about the highs, so when have I been the happiest, and the sort of peak experiences of my life. So peak experiences for me are, like, I love working with animals. I love being out in nature. So there was kind of nature, animals. Now these aren't values yet, but they're like thoughts. Other things, so in the past, there's been certain times in my career where I've like achieved something significant and it's felt like really good to have like completed like a big task. Or so for me, like achieving something, and I like to feel like I've contributed something. So achieving something has been high points, but in the past when I've been ill, as I said, I have a chronic illness, when I've been unwell, I've not been able to contribute to either society or to the household or whatever. It makes me feel rubbish. So for me it's important to feel like I'm contributing. So I feel like I'm contributing. So for me that is something that I was like, well, that's important to me. There's been times in the past, like for example, when I've pushed hard and like I've run a marathon. I've actually run 2 marathons in the past, and the accomplishment from that was amazing, and sense of achievement, and that was great. From looking back at work, so that's kind of looking at the highs of my life. I actually found looking at the lows of my life to be the most informative for me personally. Because, as I said, in my old life with my career, I really struggled with depression and with my mental health and with trying to force myself into something that wasn't suitable for me. And one of the things I struggled with the most in my old job was there was just so much to be done, and it was like more than my little brain could comprehend. The lists were so long and endless. Like there was like 70 odd items on my to-do list, and these aren't like 5-minute jobs. They'd be like jobs that would take like a week or months to complete, and they're all important, and it just overwhelmed me. And so for me, I like to be organised, I like to have lists, I like to be on top of that sense of control, that feeling like I'm on top of things, feeling like I know what's going on. I like to be able to see the whole big picture. So in the past, I have worked as an engineer on refinery projects where, like, refineries are huge. There is so much going on in a refinery, and they're massive, and I didn't like refineries because the process is so big. My brain cannot comprehend everything that's happening on a refinery. I mean, you'd be given a small portion of the refinery to focus on, but I didn't like that. I like to feel like I've got a grasp of the whole system. So when I moved into air separation, I was much happier. Like industrial gases type industry, because the processes are a lot smaller, and I was able to comprehend the whole process from beginning to end, and that made my brain happier. So I like to have that feeling of control, that feeling of knowing everything that's going on. It's the same in the house. If I know where everything is, I am so much happier. As soon as things start to get disorganised and untidy and I don't know where things are, it stresses me out. So control, organisation. I'm a big one for writing lists, and I like to know what's happening and to feel like I'm in charge and on top of things. Now I'm maybe not good at maintaining a space. That's still something I'm working on, but I love when things are organised and tidy. Like when I've tidied the house and I've cleaned it and it all looks neat and tidy. I like that. It makes me happy. So I'll put tidy on there. So I've mentioned about natural animals bring me to life, but I care deeply about looking after them. I care about the environment. And animal welfare. That's important to me. I do like learning new things, especially when it's about like the natural world and history and that kind of stuff. I do enjoy learning. And I do get bored if I'm doing the same thing over and over and I'm not getting a chance to learn new things. I'm a positive person. So a value that I really value is hardworking. Now there are times in my life where I have been incredibly hardworking. And then there's other times when not so much. Like for example, I'm sure I mentioned my in-laws the other day. Like, they are such a hard-working couple. My husband is really hard-working, and that's a value I have a lot of respect for. And anybody who's worked hard, I have respect for them. So that is something that I have a lot of respect for, and I know that in myself, when that like prompt from that website where it suggests think about things when you felt like a fraud or you felt like you've been disappointed in yourself. When I look back at my life and I see times when I haven't been hardworking, then that really makes me feel bad about myself. And I mentioned before about the honesty. and also openness, and vulnerability. So for me, it's really important to talk openly and honestly about how I'm doing, about things like mental health, about physical health, to talk openly and honestly about the struggles that I'm going through, and supporting people who are going through similar things. And for me, that is really important. And then for me, charity as well. Charity, helping others. So, I mean, we can see that it includes a lot of the things that I picked up on before. And then I think I had family on here as well. So I'm quite family orientated. I think family is really important. So a lot of the things from here, hard work and honesty, kind of clean and tidy, the environment and animal welfare, charity, raising children. So, you know, the good thing is that my thoughts from the other day match what this exercise brought up. There was maybe a few new things, like learning new things and sort of personal development things. So the first thing I did is I did this task here. So I asked myself the questions, I went through the questions, I thought about when I felt good, when I felt bad, or why I felt bad, and I wrote down this like initial list. After doing that, I then went through the big long list of values that was on the website, the Scott Jeffrey website. And then, so, check. So I'm going to call this A. B, check against list of values. Sort of like the value of thinking it out loud first and then looking at the list. Is it kind of, the list will prompt if there's something you might have forgotten about. You might be like, oh yeah, no, that's important to me too. So the next step, I said, is looking at this big long list. So it is a long list, it's actually 2 pages. It said it's like 230, and I've added a couple from a different website. So I'm just going to quickly run through them and kind of like underline the ones that, for me, so what you do is you kind of go for that gut feeling. You don't spend a lot of time deliberating on each one. You kind of go for, does this matter to me? I mean, I didn't pick acceptance last time, but actually acceptance is important to me. Adventure, it's kind of important, but later on you'll see that it falls off my list. So for me, accomplishment is a big deal. Accountability, accuracy, achievement is important. Adaptability, alertness, altruism, ambition, amusement, assertiveness, attentive, awareness, balance, beauty, boldness, bravery, brilliance, calm, candor, capable, careful, certainty, challenge, and charity. Cleanliness, I guess, yeah. Clear, clever, comfort, commitment, common sense, communication, community, compassion, competence, concentration, confidence, connection. I guess maybe connection. Consistency, contentment is important. Contribution is important. Control is important. Conviction, cooperation, courage, courtesy, creation, creativity, credibility, curiosity, decisiveness, dedication, dependability, determination, development, devotion, dignity, discipline, discovery, drive, effectiveness and efficiency, empathy, empower, endurance, energy, enjoyment, enthusiasm, equality and ethical, excellence, experience, exploration, expressive, fairness, family, famous, fearless, feelings, ferocity, fidelity, focus, foresight, fortitude, freedom, friendship, fun, generosity, gratitude. Oh, grace is important too. Greatness, growth, happiness, hard work, harmony, health, honesty, honour, hope, humility, humour, imagination, improvement, independence, individuality. I think independent would be better. Individuality, innovation, inquisitive, insightful, inspiring, integrity, intelligence, intensity, intuitive, joy, justice, kindness. Actually, justice is important, yeah. Knowledge, lawful, leadership, learning, liberty, logic, love, loyalty, mastery, maturity, meaning, moderation, motivation, openness, optimism, order, organisation, originality, passion, patience, peace, performance, persistence, playfulness, poise, potential, power, present, productivity, professionalism, prosperity, perfection, purpose, quality, realistic, reason, recognition, recreation, reflective, respect, responsibility, restraint, results orientated, reverence, rigor, risk. Not very many R's. Satisfaction, security is important, self-reliance, selfless, sensitivity, serenity, service, sharing, significance, silence, simplicity, sincerity, skill, skillfulness, smart, solitude, spirit, spirituality, spontaneous, stability, state of stewardship, strength, structure, success, support, surprise, sustainability, talent, teamwork, temperance, thankful, thorough, thoughtful, timeliness, tolerance, toughness, traditional, tranquility, transparency, trust, trustworthy, truth, understanding, uniqueness, unity, valor, victory, vigor, vision, vitality, wealth, welcoming, winning, wisdom, and wonder. So, there's plenty of things in here which are good, but maybe aren't things that jump out at me. So these are my personal, I've gone through and I've underlined my personal things that jump out. So it's kind of after you've, and obviously I've rattled through these on, like the other day when I did this, I took a little bit more time and I stopped and thought about what I'd written here and what encapsulates these things. Like which of these words encapsulates what I'd written here. The next step is to group these and think about them in terms of, like, some of these will be similar. So for example, accomplishment and achievement and contribution. It's all about achieving something and feeling like you've, like, contributed, achieved, like, given something of value back. Things like charity and altruism and love, and there's those kind of, like, those ones are kind of together. We've got order and organisation and structure. Did I underline structure? No, I didn't, but I should have, because it was one of my ones from before. And so you kind of group them. So that's step number C. Group your list into similar items. So you kind of rewrite all of the ones that you've got into, and then you kind of group them. I mean, I'll kind of roughly show you what I did on here. I'd written them out on a bit of paper, and then I used coloured pens to circle and to kind of group them that way. And then I rewrote the list to kind of try and summarise it. So that's kind of, so you group your list into similar items and you try and identify sort of like between like 5 and 10 like key values. So you group your list into similar items and then identify sort of 5 to 10 key values. lot of them will be kind of on a similar theme. They then suggest that what you do is you think about it and you rank them. Now again, this is where the first website says rank them, but doesn't necessarily explain the why so much. Whereas the other website mentions that by prioritizing your values, it helps you to see what you should focus on first to get the biggest wins in your life. So if you're not happy in your life as it currently is, by going through your values and identifying your top values, and especially like your top one or two, you can kind of look at your life and go, well, how can I honour these values in my current life, or what needs to change for me to be able to value honour these values. And so you're ranking them so you can find your priorities. Because so often society dictates to us what our priorities are. And like culturally, it might be your religion might be dictating to you what your priorities are. Whether it's something like purity or charity or attendance, I don't know. It might be culturally dictating, so things like having a career, so success, wealth. I mean, if you look at the media, things like beauty, wealth, success, fame, those are the things that our Western society apparently values more than most things. But then through coronavirus, then actually a lot of people stopped, and now we kind of value sacrifice, we value people in more kind of caring industries. I think we value our nurses a bit more and our teachers a bit more. And so the kind of our values have shifted a bit as a culture, hopefully, during coronavirus. And I think for the better. But yeah, so that kind of like, so I haven't really ranked and prioritized my values. But the values I ended up settling on, I picked 5 that I felt kind of captured. This is in no particular order. Was stewardship, love, organization. Now I'm putting this first because this is where I'm falling down at the moment, which is then impacting on the next 2. So hardworking and achievement. In the past, I have honoured the hardworking, but without getting the achievements. In my old job, I would work really hard on a project, and in engineering, the process engineer is often at the start of the process, of like the work process. So you do like the first initial design. It then gets passed on to other engineer disciplines. It gets passed on to electrical and mechanical and like process controls and civil engineering and other engineering disciplines, who then like see it through to completion. And in my old job, there were so many projects. I'd be told, like, this is a really important project, you need to do this piece of design. And I do the work, I put a lot of effort in, and then it would get, passed on to the other disciplines, and it would die, because they were being told something else was their top priority, and it would never come to anything. So I was constantly chasing up unfinished work. I was like, I'd bust my gut on something that needed to be done like yesterday, and then months later nothing still would have happened with it. So I was never getting that sense of achievement. I was never getting that seeing it completed, like, reward feedback. So I was working hard, but I wasn't getting any I'm just not actually working very hard. Because I'm so disorganised, I just sit on my phone instead because I haven't figured out what I'm doing. And then I'm not getting the achievement, so that's why I've ordered them like this for now. So for me, the stewardship really encapsulates, as a Christian, I believe that everything I have is a gift that I've been given. That nothing is mine to keep in this world. It's been given to me. When I, die, it'll go back to the universe, or however you want to describe it. It's not mine to keep. But it's mine to look after. So for me, stewardship is very important. I passionately believe, as it is built into my religious faith, that we have been given what we've been given to look after, and we're supposed to make use of it. So for example, that includes myself, my physical body. I've been given this, and it's my job to look after it. So that includes eating healthy, that includes looking after my mental health, that includes looking after me. That includes personal development, striving to be a better person. That includes using the talents that I've been given and the abilities that I've been given. This also includes my family. So this is like me believing that my husband is a gift that's been given to me. It's my job to look after him in the same way it's his job to look after me. It works both ways. The baby I've got growing in my belly is a gift, and it's my job to look after it. And that, for me, that doesn't mean that as the female it's my job to keep the house. It means it's my job to work together with my husband as a team to make sure that all of our needs are met, and to make sure that we're all looked after, and that we're all supported so we can be the best that we can be. Now, it just so happens that in our relationship and in our current setup, he's going out to work. So actually, for me, that is looking after the house, that when he comes home, like, he's going and fixing the tractor right now. That's not something I can do. So it makes sense for him to go and fix the tractor. I mean, I'm doing a video right now, but, like, I might wash. No, he's done the dishes already. I might do something at some point if it's constructive. It's the weekend. But yeah, the idea being I can hoover while he's doing the tractor kind of thing. That's, it's splitting it fairly. With my children, it'll be raising them. I had raising children as a priority here. It will be raising them to be the best that they can be. But this also includes things like the environment. I believe the earth that we've been given is ours to look after. So for me, that's an important priority. I want to start growing our own fruit and veg. I want to reduce our environmental footprint. I've really been thinking about things like even like holidays abroad, that kind of thing, international travel, reducing the number of flights I take, and long distance travel, and like so bigger things like that. I'm really thinking about the impact I have on the environment. So that's my own personal values. Now, that's really important. I want to clarify that I'm not saying these are the best values. These are my personal values, and that is a thing. There's so many values out there. Each person has their own unique set of values, and that is a beautiful thing. And it's not a bad thing to have different values to the person next to you, but it's probably useful to know if you have different values to your partner, for example, because that might cause issues if you value being on time and they value beauty, and so they care more about looking good than they do about turning up on time, and you care more about turning up on time than looking good. It's important understanding when your values clash. That's not an example from my life, that's just one I picked out of the air. And then for me, the love, that includes things like it breaks my heart when I see like news articles about like refugees and stuff, or people who are struggling or going through hard times. So for me, compassion and love is important. Expressing my love to the ones around me is important, and making sure they know that they're loved. And that kind of ties into community and all that kind of thing. So for me, those, and as a Christian as well, like, you'd hope that would be on every Christian's list of values, because God is love and we're supposed to reflect God. But obviously, we're not all the same. But yeah, so that's kind of like, that's what I mentioned before about faith, religion, cultural background will influence your values. I come from a working class background, so hard working is something that was like drilled into me since I was a child, that you're supposed to work hard, so that's probably where that comes from. Being idle is viewed as a negative, but it's something that I'm happy to keep. As an adult, I'm happy to be continuing to value that. It's still something that I do hold to have value. Anywho, so now that you have asked yourself the questions, brainstormed, come up with some ideas, you've checked it against a list, you've grouped them, you've identified your kind of core top 5 or 10, you've ranked them to find your priorities, then now it's the kind of phase of thinking about, does my life reflect my values? So we're going to call this F. Does my life reflect my values? I've got a cat at the window that wants in, but she can stay outside. Do I live by them? Does my career reflect my values? So for example, if you care about integrity, but you work for let's say you're a journalist working for a newspaper that often like hacks people's phones and that kind of stuff, you might want to think about who your employer is. Like, if you're in an industry or in a job or working for an employer that goes against your core values, it's not going to be good for you in the long term. How do you spend your time? Does that reflect your core values? Also, if you're somebody who has set themselves goals, so say, I don't know, if like your goals for the year, or life goals, or like things you want to achieve, do they actually reflect your values? Are they actually in line with your values? Because if they're not, you might want to revisit your goals. And that for me was quite interesting, because I often do set goals and like objectives and stuff, and actually like how much is that the activities I've given myself reflect my values. It's an interesting concept. I'm just having a look at the notes I made from the other day. And then they also revisit your values regularly. Now they were suggesting even like reading them every morning to really cement them in your mind, so that when you go about your daily activities, you're really doing so intentionally. Like the other day, for example, so that yesterday was Friday, I was working in the afternoon. I had a doctor's appointment, kind of a midwife appointment midday. So my day was kind of broken up and a bit bitty. I had a lot of things I wanted to do, but I had to phone our telephone stroke broadband provider. I knew I was going to be on the phone with them for a while, because it's been an ongoing problem we've been having for quite some time. Last time I was on the phone to them for 8 hours in one day. Thankfully yesterday was just 1 hour, but it's something I've been avoiding because I knew it was going to be painful. But my husband really wanted it done, and he'd asked me if I would do it. Now, going back to my values, achievement stroke contribution, bearing in mind making sure I've contributed, stewardship. Now basically the utility company has now refunded us like £130 basically. So looking after me and my family and our finances, it was an important thing to do. I love my husband, and it was something that was important to him, so it was an important thing to do. And it was something that, when it was done, I got that sense of achievement and contribution. And so that's the task I started with yesterday, and I got that done. The rest of my day didn't go to plan, and nothing really went the way I planned it to. So not a huge amount else got achieved yesterday. But that one thing that I did achieve fitted in with my core values. So yesterday I'm like, yep, I'll take that off and say that I did an alright job. And so by keeping your values regularly in your mind, I'm just making sure this has actually been recording. It has. So by keeping those values regularly in your mind, it helps you to prioritise your activities on a daily basis, but also like on a long-term goals basis as well. It helps you make decisions about career changes. It helps you make decisions. So, ironically, in my old life, I wasn't able to do the environmental part of the stewardship at all because I was so busy with my career. I didn't have the time to sit and do all the things I wanted to do. I have now got a life where I can work towards being as self-sufficient as possible. I can start growing our own food, and I can start reducing how far our food travels to get to us and this kind of stuff. So there's things I can start doing that will really honour this important value for me. I'm really fortunate that I'm currently working to become a self-employed accountant working from home, so I can really focus on my family. I can focus on raising my children and make that a priority for me, with my career being more of a thing on the side that helps pay the bills rather than something that consumes all of my time and energy. Like where I was at before, my career consumed all of my time and energy. If I was to be doing the job I was doing before and also try to raise a family, there is no way I would have been able to do that, because it used all of my time and energy. Like when I came home at the end of the day, I was exhausted, and I would have had nothing left to give to my family if I had like a husband and children at home. I was living on my own then, and so nobody else had to suffer for that except for me. But I've realised that for me, nowhere on this list is success and ambition and career type. It's not a priority for me. Like earning lots of money and becoming the CEO is not on my list at all. I have no ambition to be head honcho or a manager, or it's just not important to me. Now that's not saying that the people who it is important, we need those sorts of people in the world, and the people who that is important to, that's brilliant, but for me it wasn't on my list. So it's about building a life that fits your values and that fits what you're trying to achieve. And yeah, so that's kind of... And then the Scott Jeffries website recommends putting them into sentences to clearly define what they mean to you. It's kind of almost like what you get in corporate mission statements. And it might sound cheesy, but it might help to clarify. So I might actually do that activity now into my bullet journal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these and I'm going to put them in my bullet journal as a little page, and I'm going to do the exercise of writing them into sentences of what that means for me. This is going to be quite a long video. person, so I personally appreciate that kind of thing. So I'm just going to move some of these pages out of the way now. And we are going to get my bullet journal. Actually, one interesting thing. So for example, here are my things to complete before baby arrives. Now, working on my accountancy, that is working towards a job that I can do while still honouring my values, so that's all good. This is a charity role that I do as a treasurer for, and it's also gaining experience for my accountancy, so again, that makes sense, that is sensible. This is all mostly about getting the house organised. So again, these all make sense, and then this is about preparing for baby arriving. So all of the things that my cat's like banging on the window. It's a terrible day outside, it's really windy and rainy, and the cat's like, let me in, but she wouldn't come in earlier, so she can stay out for now. She's doing the banging her paws on the window. I'll let her in when I've finished the video. She'll only won't back out again in like 5 minutes. But it's good to see that all the things on here do actually fit in with my values. There's nothing in here that I'm like, that's just ridiculous. There's not like I've got like learn Spanish, which has got nothing to do with anything else that's going on in my life. In time, my long-term goals, I would like to be get a compost heap on the go, start growing vegetables, get chickens, get cows, that kind of thing. So that is actually on my long-term list. I've got like I do have like a long-term goals list, but I'm not sure to share that for now. But let's find a nice blank page. So I do have a study planner here. I don't think I want to put it here. Or will I just use this blank page here? No, I think I'm gonna do it here. Because what I might do is I might do this page of a kind of values mission statement type thing, and then over here at a later date I will brainstorm some things that I could be doing to honour those values. But as I said, that will be at a later stage. So let's get some pens out. We're currently on green. My cat is being such a turd. My husband's gone to get the mail, so she's gone to go and harass him, I think. Right. Now, I am not the most creative of types, and so my bullet journal spreads aren't nearly as amazing as all of other people's. And I have made peace with that. What do I do there? Right, so we are going to call this my core choose to look after all that I've been given, to look after all that I've been given and ensure it reaches its full potential. And that is me, my family, the environment, right, 2, love. How would I best describe this for me? To carry God's love into each day. And act it out to those around me. I think that pretty well sums it up. So, organization. This is a core value for me. To organize my life, to ensure maximum efficiency. I'm going to say a minimum stress. For hardworking. I put this to earn my Sabbath rest. By being hardworking the rest of the week. Accomplish tasks, challenge myself. And contribute. And make a contribution. I would say that matters. So for me, that is micro-fuzz, and so I can now revisit this on a daily basis. I can revisit this when I'm making big life choices. I can use this to revisit my goals and things. And kind of on this page I might sort of do like a long-term goals brainstorm type. Think about what that looks like. But I'm aware this video's gone on for quite some time. I believe we've kind of gone over the content pretty well. I feel that it's been pretty well laboured to death. And I really hope that this is useful and informative for you, or just relaxing, me rambling away in the background, that maybe you've fallen asleep. But if it's something that subject matter is actually of interest to you, I hope that you found it useful. This is where probably a highlight reel would be far more useful. But this is more working through the process, if that was what you were after. I said I'm doing ASMR videos, not clear, concise, 10-minute long highlights.